What's up, y'all? Welcome back to Dolphins Daily, your daily dose of Dolphins content. It's your boy, Chris Kane, and we're here to talk about the Dolphins per usual. So, we're going to start with the draft, more specifically, Senior Bowl week. This is where you get to watch seniors or guys who've declared for the draft kind of get their last second workouts in before the combine, before the draft. And this is a good place to see people who maybe you haven't got a chance to get a lot of one-on-one time with, or you've only seen them on film. You get to actually be around them in real life. And this is where you start seeing people fly up draft boards. Like these are like the D2 quarterbacks, guys at smaller schools. Sometimes D1 guys who maybe had up and down years. So let's say Carson Beck is going back to school this year, but let's say Carson Beck went pro. Like he started out clearly the number one prospect and just started falling. He became maybe QB 3, 4, 5, whatever. But maybe like during the draft process, you see a big dude, strong arm. All of a sudden, you're like, you know what? He might be better than Cam Ward. And then you can kind of talk yourself into a higher pick, right? So the Dolphins have been talking about drafting a backup quarterback or acquiring one by some means. And apparently, GM Chris Greer thinks, hey, if Jaxson Dart shows out a little bit from Ole Miss, then maybe he could be the guy. Here's the thing: Jaxson Dart is somebody's gonna reach for Jaxson Dart. You're hearing that from me right now. I think Quinn Ewers falls. I think Jaxson Dart becomes QB 3. I think Jalen Milroe will end up going to a good team, but I don't believe he'll be the third quarterback. I think he'll end up somewhere between 20 and 32. But I think Jaxson Dart will be a top 19 pick in the draft. Somebody's going to make a move for him. And he may not even make it out of the top 10, even though he's not probably skilled enough to be there, because he played at Ole Miss. His stats are great. He's actually more mobile than people think he is because he seems like a pocket passer. But he's got decent mobility. I would say his mobility is Justin Herbert-ish. Like maybe he's not as top end fast, but he's a little slippery. He'll get out of there. And he's got a good arm, obviously. Now he absolutely failed at the end of the year. I mean, woof. We saw his eyes get big. We saw the collapse happen, and he's never won anything in college. So if it's like an intangible thing, not particularly great. His signature win is beating Georgia, which is really cool. But he never won like SEC championship. They obviously never went to like a Big 12, not Big 12, like the final 12 college playoff thing. So he might be skilled, but we haven't seen it translate to like high level play consistently. Now the Dolphins have again a 13th pick, and so if they fall in love with Jaxson Dart, he will not be there in the second round. Guaranteed won't be in their second round, which means they will be spending their first round pick on Jaxson Dart. I hate the idea. I hate it. I hate the idea that we have O line needs, we have secondary needs. We're going to spend our first pick on Jaxson Dart as a quarterback because that would tell me that the clock is on Tua. That's what that tells me. Now again, if that's the plan, like if you think Dart could be your future starter, then draft him at 13. I don't have an issue with that. Now they have a lot of money tied up in Tua. I don't know how they can get out of the contract inside of 2 years without, taking giant dead cap hits. So if the idea is that hey, we're not looking for a backup, we're looking for a successor, then draft Jaxson Dart. If you think he's the future, you think this guy could be Dan Marino-esque, then go get him. But if the idea is we're going to use our first round pick on a backup quarterback, that's insane to me. That's insane. I would rather draft Kyle McCord in the third or fourth round, who I think projects similar in terms of how he throws the ball. Senior, was at Ohio State, went to Syracuse. Like, I'd rather get a Kyle McCord as a backup than spend all my draft capital on Jaxson Dart. That doesn't make any sense to me. But we will see. This might just be floating stuff out there. Maybe the idea is that someone might trade with the Dolphins, trade up, and Dolphins trade down. Let's say a team like, Minnesota they got their quarterback maybe. We'll see what's going on there. But let's say a team like the Rams, right? They try to get Stetson Bennett. Apparently that's not great. Jimmy G, and then Stafford is going on 37, talking about possibly retiring. If you think Jaxson Dart could be a dude and he starts to fall a little bit, the Rams, with that coach, with Puka, hey, I'm not saying it's for sure going to work, but I think Sean McVay can make it work more than anybody else can. And so for that, say the Rams want to trade at 13 and we get some pick compensation back, then now it could work. But If this is like we're going to use our resources to draft a quarterback in the first round, I hate it. I hope it's just smoke and mirrors, but that doesn't make a lot of sense to me. So we mentioned a few weeks ago that Reggie McKenzie was interviewing for the GM position at Tennessee, and we talked about all the reasons why it made sense. Like he's played at UT, he lives in Tennessee, and they would seem like a natural fit. And then Tennessee hired another GM, so I thought, like some of you thought, all right, cool, he's just going to stay. Well, he's not. He's out, and Tennessee is bringing him in, so he will be working with the Titans. They don't have a like specific role. This seems like a advisor to the advisor kind of thing. Like we want you in the building um, to maybe even advise the GM. And then if the GM falters, then we already got you in the building. We just kind of promote you straight up into it. So this may be like a GM in waiting kind of situation. But in the meantime, we think you're too good to not be on our team, which it makes sense. I mean, he obviously wanted the job. It fits. It's sad to see him go, but teams know what they want. And if they want you to be on their team, then they will get you on their team. I mean, Robert Saleh last year, when the Jets fired him, was just like, he wasn't a DC for San Francisco. He was just like there, like special advisor to the defensive coordinator. I'm like, I don't know what that job title is. Like, what do you get paid for that? It's not. Let's not talk about the pay. We're getting paid, but don't worry about it. It's like, but who reports to you? Please. Enough of those questions. He's on the roster. Just know that, right? When you're a senior personnel person, I assume he might be working still with scouting in some capacity, but they haven't really outlined what he'll be doing yet. But he's leaving the Dolphins, which means that the Dolphins lose another personnel member. We lose another person to the team. Now, if he had gotten hired as a GM, the Dolphins would have got back a compensatory pick, which we talked about before with Robert Hunt and Van Ginkel and those guys we lost last year. We would have got another pick for a guy on our team leaving who's a minority and getting a GM job. But because he's not the GM, we just lost him for nothing. There's no picks. There's no nothing. It's just, he's just not on our team anymore. So we wish him the best. Hopefully it works out. If it doesn't, I'm sure there'll always be a spot here to be on our scouting department. But we wish you the best. And another personnel situation. I mean, listen, people are rating the Dolphins like we won 15 games last year. I don't know what's going on, but it's a lot happening. So our quarterbacks coach, Daryl Beville, who you may remember from back at Seattle, has been a QB coach here for 3 years. And he's helped get the most out of Tua. Not so much with the backups, but people think of him as being a good quarterback coach. He was good with Russell Wilson as well. So, as you know, Pete Carroll got hired with the Raiders. 74-year-old Pete Carroll, ridiculous, but shout out to Pete Carroll. And they're looking for an offensive coordinator. And because Daryl Beville has worked with him before, he knows what the offense is. Pete Carroll's like a Belichick guy. Belichick always has McDaniels with him. Like it's when you got your people, you got your people. And so the rumor is that Daryl Beville is strongly the leading candidate to be the offensive coordinator for the Raiders. It only makes sense. I guess it's probably like a money situation. The Raiders don't have as much money as most teams. So maybe they won't offer him the money that he's asking for. But he will, yeah. Now, it seems to be one of those things where it's like he's got the job. That's kind of, they didn't say he got a job, but it's like you got the job. So assuming, there's no physical, he's not a player. Assuming they get terms, so it might be a year thing. Was it 3 years, 4 years? They kind of quibble about that kind of thing. I think Pete Carroll's contract is 3 years. So typically, coaches get 5-year contracts, but Pete Carroll, again, is 117 years old. That's so ridiculous. All right, he's not 117. That seemed gratuitous. I'm sorry, Pete. But because Pete Carroll is the age that he is, he got a shorter contract, and maybe Daryl Beville's like, hey, I'm not 200 years old. Like, I want a 5-year OC job because if you fire me at the 3, then I can still get paid out for those last couple of years. Because otherwise, they would just bring him in and say 3-year contract, match up with the coach. So they're probably doing little dotting I's and crossing T's, but I expect sometime tomorrow, if not Wednesday, you hear Daryl Beville will be the offensive coordinator for the Raiders. And again, it's another loss for the Broncos, loss for the Dolphins, and loss for our inner circle. We've had a new wide receivers coach. We got, our DC is still highly in contention. I believe that job will be going to the Cowboys' former coach, McCarthy. He's the leading candidate now, and it's right there. But if McCarthy can't agree to terms, I do think Anthony Weaver could be like the next guy up. So there's a lot of tumult and a lot of indecision about what's going to happen. But I do expect Beville to be gone. I do not know who we have in line to be the next quarterbacks coach. It may be someone we promote from within. It may be someone from the outside. But there'll be a different voice talking to Tua. And so, that may be something to consider. What might be an interesting situation, this is purely speculative on my part, if we do indeed draft a quarterback in the draft to be the backup quarterback, it would be interesting if their OC or their quarterback's coach is in contention to be ours, because then it's like we can get the most from that position. And if we're grooming the quarterback of the future, then there may be some harmony there. But I expect Daryl Beville to be out. We wish him the best. He's been here for 3 years, and no one's hired him up till now. So, we had a good run with him, but I do expect him to be gone, and we had to fill more positions. But that will be it for today's Dolphins Daily episode. Thank you guys for all the viewers, subscribing, all that good stuff. We'll be back tomorrow with more Dolphins content. See you then. Peace.